Hey, folks.
Welcome to the 100th episode of We're Not Fine. Today's a celebratory day.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. This podcast also does not establish a standard of care, doctor-patient, or client relationship. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. And because each person is so unique, all listeners are encouraged to connect with counseling and medical professionals for assistance with their personal journey. All people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved.
Welcome to We're Not Fine. I'm Dr. Talia Jackson.
And I'm Doug Jensen. We thank you for listening every week to our deep and thought-provoking conversations about relationships.
100! We did it!
100 is huge. I wish I had like a party blower, but I forgot to get one.
Well, do you wish that you had...
What do you have?
I like getting Doug's surprise gifts. He wasn't into my temporary tattoo, but this.
What is this?
Tiara! Wait, that might be a little small and it won't go well in your hair. All right, Doug, would you like pearls or just crystals? This feels
I'm big on
like
crystal.
you.
Is the crystal feeling like me?
It really
Yeah, I'm not a pearl
is.
guy. I like everything crystal. Do you...
I should have prepared a little bit better. Guess what? 100 episodes in and I still have ADHD and I still don't have enough foresight.
It doesn't... Do you mean...
Talk amongst yourselves.
So here's a baby one, by the way. This is like a bracelet or something that you'd put in your hair, and as people know. And of course, I'm wearing the new merch, the We're Not Fine beanie. I kind of dig that. That's pretty cool. Thank you for this. This is really special.
Well, too, I just need one of these
I don't want to cover up the logo.
baby tiaras.
It kind of goes back in your hairs.
I'm going to try it. I've never had a tiara like this. Oh, where's the center of my head? My proprioception is off. There.
That's so clinical.
There.
That is gorgeous. I think we look
Thank
really
you.
good.
And profesh.
And so this episode, as fun as this is going to be like talking about reminding us, not only us, but you, why we do this topic, why we think the impact of mental health on relationships is important.
That's right.
And then, of course, we did this special thing because we currently have 4 team members, and we are so eager to hear their thoughts on a couple different questions that we're going to ask each of them. And you're going to hear their voices.
Yes.
Because they're going to do voiceovers in this editing. Our amazing editor did this We're Not Fine logo, which is Jimmy Goat.
Which is also my t-shirt, in case you were wondering how to style this really amazing We're Not Fine Jimmy Goat merch.
And Jimmy Goat is, of course, my childhood pet that I butted heads with when they didn't have horns, and then they had horns, and I kept doing it. And as we all know, that probably wasn't the greatest idea, which is probably why I've ended up being who I am.
Doug's first best friend who gave
Jimmy
him
Goat.
some concussions.
Yeah.
And really explains what happened to the majority of his brain cells.
Yeah. And why I do this as a living.
But seriously, what a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yes, that you survived, but also, most importantly, us.
You meant our 100th episode.
Our 100th episode! And I feel like it was a little bit under 2 years ago that we started recording, and I wanted us to reflect on our crazy journey because it has not been all smooth sailing. We've learned...
Hasn't it?
So much about ourselves. I don't know about Doug, but I have aged 20 years probably in the last 2. That's what happens
I've actually regressed 20 years. Although
Yes,
I must tell you, it's
regressed.
hot in here, and so I'm not going to wear this hat
take
forever.
off all your tiara.
I think I'm stuck on the hat.
Is it stuck on with sweat?
Okay, that feels better. I don't think I...
Oh my God, that's so much better. Okay, let's do it.
This isn't comfortable. on a
Wait,
bald head.
we gotta come back just for a YouTube selfie.
Okay.
Aren't we cute?
Okay.
Okay. So, but yes, we want to start with our why. Like, why are we doing this podcast? Why do we feel like mental health and relationships are so important that it takes us blabbing on and on for hundreds of episodes.
And you know what's interesting about this? Like, I really think about how this all started. And I was approached by a dude who was our first producer. And, you know, we talked about what the focus would be. It was initially going to be something entirely different related to his workplace. But then he saw that there was potential to really build this into something much different. And we have spent probably 1.5 years, really, we've been fine tuning what the real message is here. And really, we are so clear as therapists that somebody's mental health and how we interview people and assess people who we work with, you know, all of those factors come into play as to how they do relationships. But the bottom line is being in a healthy relationship improves your mental health. It reduces stress, it reduces anxiety, it reduces depression, it reduces suicide ideation. There's so many ways that being in a healthy relationship impacts you. Now, the caveat to that is that if you're in an unhealthy relationship, your mental health is conversely impacted. Right. So we want to, you know, reiterate why we do this, because we're hoping to help people gain self-awareness on their mental health and relationships. Because bottom line, mental health impacts relationships, and relationships impacts mental health.
And you can't really have one without the other. You can't have a healthy relationship without healthy mental state.
Fair.
And you can't have good mental health if you don't have good relationships. And so it is a marriage unto itself. And we just really want to offer strategies to improve your mental health and your relationship health, because they're so intertwined and you can't have one without the other. And good news for us is that we picked a topic here that we could go on another 1,000 gazillion episodes, because there are so many factors. I mean, we've talked about all these different, you know, anxiety, depression, OCD. I really want to talk to someone who has a psychotic disorder, schizophrenia, schizoid, you know, the personality disorders were some of our most popular episodes.
Yeah. And, you know, it's been interesting. I think, honestly, there have been so many bumps and bruises in this process. You know, I think my daughter in LA, who is in the media and music and movie industry, you know, the interesting thing is she kind of warned me when we started that there would be strain, there would be ups and downs. This is not an easy process. It takes patience. It takes time. And as anybody who's been watching us from the beginning knows, we started out really kind of tight. Like we were in my office kind of reconfiguring furniture and putting microphones around. But we were really nervous about self-disclosure and being clinical. And
we were very buttoned.
We were very buttoned. And
buttoned
now
up.
Over the course of time, there's been a lot more unbuttoned. And what we have found important is the level of self-disclosure that we have in this podcast for both of us is kind of critically important to have people understand that we're all in the same boat. We're all human beings trying to struggle with our relationships. And these are relationships with ourselves, with our family members, with our coworkers, with our intimate spouses, with our sex partners, with everybody. Relationships are everywhere. And it really never stops being a cycle of mental health and relationships.
Did you also say relationships with ourselves? Because that
I did
really
first.
important.
That was the first thing I said.
I mean,
one thing I've learned about ADHD is that the first thing I say,
squirrel, is I lose the first thing
that was my first
said.
one. Yep.
But it is. I mean, relationships are everything, and I feel like Doug, you and I have learned so much about each other and ourselves, and in some ways, this relationship is even more intimate than a spousal relationship, because we not only are checking in every day about just our general well-being and the goings on in our lives, but we are working together. And so, like, for instance, our husband, Rob, who's actually my husband, but we're sort of a throuple, really, without, not everyone gets the goods of our throuple. I'll let you do the math on that. But it is this idea that, like, not only are we married, but you and I, but we also have to work together. So there's like a work persona that Rob doesn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And
well, he sometimes does.
Yes.
He has been a mediator several times in the course of our relationship. So not a lot of times, though.
Well, because
we've done pretty well.
We're fire, and he's like a cool drink of water.
What's interesting is you and I really did start like seeing each other like every few months for sushi and cocktails, which we talked about at the very, very beginning episode, an intro to all of this. And now we do talk every day and we record every other week. Yeah, and it's a very different relationship.
Everything about each other.
Yeah. Yes.
It is
Which
pretty
isn't always
special.
great because
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've never been known this well. And I don't particularly love being known by a therapist who's like, you seem a little this, or you seem a little that, or like, did you not sleep well? Or did you?
I can tell you, I usually say, I can tell you didn't sleep well.
I know. And I'm like, I thought I was getting away with it. But so, friends, you've also seen us through a lot of highs and lows. I mean, from the very beginning, I mean, I feel like our podcast was born. Let's go over the
Sequence of events.
sequence of events.
Yep.
Our podcast was born. You asked me. I said no because I didn't
I think
feel
twice.
I feel like twice or even thrice because I did not feel like I didn't feel like I was a public facing figure. I felt really confident about my one-on-one work. But after 20 years of private practice, I couldn't even picture facing the public with, I don't know, my thoughts, ideas, because Doug and I are both a very unique combination of, I'm just going to say it, we're kind of brilliant in our own ways. That's why I think we love each other's brains still. I love your brain more than I've ever loved your brain after 2 years of work together.
Okay.
And we're incredibly professional. We are obsessed with our work. We're obsessed with mental health.
100% true.
But what makes us maybe different than the other podcasts and authors and psychologists and therapists is that we really bring ourselves into this process and into this work. We are modeling what it feels like to be sometimes a hot mess, just really real, really connected. How do you impart information as a professional, but also be very human? We want to model that you can still be an amazing functional person, even if you're going through stuff.
Yeah. So going back to kind of the sequence of events, that's absolutely true how this started. And we've gone through a number of different team members. We've gone through a couple different, multiple producers, which we started to think, so what is it that we're doing that is so hard to work with us?
Yeah.
And I might still think that.
We still ask ourselves.
But one of the things I think, Talia, and you just referenced it, the majority of my close friends are other mental health people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like yourself included. And so it's been interesting because if we're not okay, we know it and we check out the other person without fear. We do sometimes multiple episodes on the same day. And if we're not at our best, we do different things to cope or we do different things. And, I think music is something we use sometimes to focus every time we get ready for an episode. So I think there's a lot of different things that we've learned. Sometimes I feel really off, or sometimes we haven't slept, or I've got stressors going on in my life, or I'm really preoccupied with a relationship of my own, or whatever it is. And it's really hard to focus. Except this is about working through that. And one of the beauties of having you as my friend, as a therapist, is that I can voice anything. Like in the mornings when we check in usually, or I text and I'm like, I'm doing really shitty today because of this or whatever it is, right? And then we just talk about it.
We would like
It's like free therapy.
It is. Yeah, we give each other free therapy every day.
Yep.
You get what you pay for, by the way. But it's this idea of like we want to model that you can just show up as you are and that you don't have to be perfect and polished and you could still be you and we're all welcome in that space. And I mean, we have really been through a ton. When we first started recording, before we were dropping episodes, this was like in the spring, right before we dropped our first episode in August. My most favorite person in the entire world, my cousin Moran, which I didn't really talk about very much, he died out of nowhere, heart attack. He just had a wedding 2 years earlier. We were there in Milan and celebrated with his beautiful wife. They had just had a baby. And a year and a half later, he just dies on a bike ride. And I was reeling. I have never been so unwell and dealing with so much grief and loss and not knowing how to talk about it. So that was like the beginning of our podcast.
It was. And I remember needing to kind of work around some of that. You needed to travel.
Yes, I needed to go and visit my family and go to the funeral.
Yeah. So there was all that. And I've had injuries I've had.
Yes, I mean, you no longer do jujitsu. You were so injured.
I do jujitsu just now with people who do it instead of, I'm not at my
You're not at a
dojo right
gym.
now. I'm not at a gym at the moment, but yeah, I still train with dudes and people that want to train. So yeah, I mean, I think, and it's been one injury that got in the way of, because I was in the emergency room all night.
Oh my God.
And
I will never forget. So we were about to do an interview and I feel like,
I said, I'll just do it.
but was I here? And then I was calling you.
You and our previous producer, Supak, were here.
Yes.
Yep.
And then I called you and you were like, I just took an oxy or something, like some
I'll be
pain
right
med.
in.
And his like shoulder blade was popping out of the joint. And he was like, I'm still going to go through with it. He's like, I'm not sure I can sit upright and my eyes are not focusing, but let's just go for it. And I'm like, wow, that's a dedication.
It was dedication. I would have done it.
We canceled and rescheduled.
We did cancel, which was probably wise.
It was wise.
And then, of course, in Key West, I probably did not look at my best for lots of reasons. And my buddy Geoff, who is still our AV guy, said, Doug, you look like shit. You should never record again in that way. So I've learned a little bit. We've learned like maybe we listen to ourselves as well, which is a lesson we want everyone to know.
Yes.
Like before you really perform, before you do what you need to do, please practice self-care, right? Because if we're not at our best, which the weird thing about this podcast though is that oftentimes we're not at our best, but we're like, I remember one time I had my head on the table. We're telling our trade secrets.
We are.
And I was about to sleep and my buddy Geoff is like, Doug, 5, and he pushed the button. Or you did or something.
Yes.
And someone said, you need to go. And I just woke up.
So
right?
if you have not perused our Patreon yet, so go to Patreon and look up We're Not Fine. But we are, I don't think we've mentioned to you guys, but we've decided we're going to take July 4th off. We've never taken a week off.
Not once.
But we want you to take July 4th off too. And our fabulous editor, Alex, is literally digging through the archives of our 100 episodes and coming up with the bonus material, which Doug and I, oh my God, we have so many crazy, weird things that never made it. They're still, they were on the editing chopping block floor. How do people talk about that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think on the editing chopping block.
If you're on
the floor.
Cutting room floor.
If
you go to our Patreon, you will see all of the behind the scenes and it's going to be super embarrassing, funny stuff there.
You know what's funny too? Like I just think about the fact that we have lights on us. We have a ton of equipment in front of us. We have these.
We do.
And I did not do well with microphones when we started.
Oh my God.
And so I remember I even threw one across the room because I was frustrated with being told, I can't hear you. Yes. So this is a massive adjustment, not only to, and then, we had a couple team members a few episodes back try to take our place and when as they were walking out, they're like, that's really hard.
Yes.
And you get used to this. Like you get very used to doing this and there's not a lot of prep anymore. We just kind of sit down. But our AV team, if we didn't have them, they've set up the camera. They set up the recording equipment. The lighting is done by them. They let us know what's not working. Like before we started this episode, my buddy Geoff, who came in and looks at everything, said, move that crap all out of the way so people don't see it in front of us. Like we just need kind of a parental figure to tell us what to do.
He is that. Geoff is
he's a little bossy.
He is, but we kind of need that because we're like it's like herding cats a little bit when you work with us.
He'll oftentimes say, Doug, be quiet. I'm like, that does not work well. I talk. But it's been really interesting.
Talkers.
I could go on and on because the things you and I have learned about, like I'm going to tell you, like while I've treated people with ADHD, this one with ADHD.
He's just undiagnosed. Like he thinks he doesn't have it. It's like I could diagnose you right now. You've got it. Let me name all of the things.
I'm going to be still for a while and show you that I don't.
You can't be still because you are also fidgety and you also are crawling out of your skin a lot of the time. I don't buy this. Don't buy this. If something is not engaging his attention, he will quickly hop on Grindr. He starts singing. He does other stuff. And then when I try to bring him back to the topic, he's like, there's your ADHD again. No, herding cats. I'm medicated.
I do sing a lot.
I sing a lot too.
You do.
I don't sing well, but
I think you
man,
sing
can I
really, really, really well.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever
That was
said.
insincere, and I value authenticity, so I didn't mean it.
So speaking of, one thing that I've really learned about myself through Doug is that we are just on completely opposite ends of the spectrum of like directness or wanting to be agreeable or go with the flow, or, you know, I'm a little more avoidant if there's something hard to talk about, and Doug just like throws it out there. But I feel like I have grown.
You have grown. You told me that, you know, there's been a handful of times that you've done this in your life, and I'm so pleased to have grown you in this way.
Yes.
I also will say that when we go like to the local coffee shop or to a restaurant,
Yeah.
I'll say, we have a podcast.
I still need that courage from you because I
And she
can't start that
literally-
conversation.
You will not start
I
it.
cringe.
You also cringe when someone says, and we even went down to the coffee
Yeah.
shop with the new advertisements for our next live event on July 14th.
Which is navigating catastrophic loss and finding
It's
yourself.
going to be a really important topic.
July
We've-
14th, Dr. Kim Harms.
But we went down to the local
Incredible.
place where the owner calls me Dimples sometimes.
So
And,
cute.
And it's just
Cup
so
of Java, check it out.
So I literally, you know, we put something on the where people order coffee.
Counter.
On the counter, against the counter, right? Taped it to the counter. And the people in line, I said, hey, everybody, come to our podcast. I said, that's us. And so people started looking closely. They're like,
It's true.
it is you. And it was kind of fun. And you're like, I'm shriveling.
If
You're
you
getting
guys,
more comfortable, though.
I am. But
Yep.
if you guys have listened to our Enneagram episodes, you will learn about that personality profiling system that I'm so obsessed with. But Doug is the 8, which is like boss energy, or we call BDE.
Big dick energy.
You're a boss babe. And everybody needs an 8 in their lives, but unhealthy
True.
8s are kind of a disaster.
Which I have some of those traits, too.
You do. It makes you a little more colorful. And I'm a 7 in the Enneagram, which is the sort of the enthusiast, the epicure. And that's also the ADHD and the scattered, but really joyful. And so we have had to learn how each other works and each other's wiring and try to have our complementary skill sets bring out the best in each other and in this podcast.
Yeah. And, you know, I bet that viewers have opinions just even about us.
God, can you just tell us?
You know, and one of the things I will joke about is that in the origins of this, we got a lot of feedback, right? And there were people that had negative comments. There were people that had critiques. And we kind of decided at one point, we're not going to talk about that anymore. You know, one of the wise things that our first producer said was to kind of ignore some of those comments. I don't think we should ignore them. I'm more than happy to see them. I got a negative on YouTube about my sexual promiscuity, which is not really a thing.
And we don't have to be everyone's favorite. We do.
No, but I
wanna
like those comments
hear.
because this is part of life.
It's
Like
part of life.
and they got taken off of YouTube, and I still wish it was on there because I want to engage with that person. Like, tell me what goes on for you about that. So I'm big on like whatever comes our way. And of course, now we're going to get some because I invited it.
Please, we want to know. DM us or send us a note
Give us
through the
feedback.
website.
Like, we always want to improve.
we'renotfine.com. There's also contact at we'renotfine.com.
5.
But we really we get mixed signals from, because we don't even know what you guys are. We want to know what you want, more of what you want, less of
What you really, really want.
what you really, really want. We got some feedback that some people were not digging our banter.
You mean what we're doing now?
It's literally kind of who we are. And then we were wondering like, oh, should we just be like the other podcasts and just be very buttoned up and professional? And we decided no, but what we have started offering is that if you're listening to an episode, just assume that we're going to be checking in and bantering for the first 10 or so minutes, and then just skip ahead to the meat of the episode if you just want to jump ahead.
Speaking of the word unbuttoned or buttoned,
That's right.
like we had a conversation about
The
words.
semantics. We're
And
always...
you're a big spicy and juicy person, and those words are not appealing to me.
No!
When it comes to mental health and conversation, it
It's
feels
true.
like it feels not right. And so we kind of got to unbuttoned, and then our beautiful social media person Dig said, "I kind of like the unbuttoned."
Yes.
And I'm like, okay,
Because
toodle on.
and we're like, what makes us different than all the other mental health and relationship podcasts is we really are so ourselves.
Yeah, we're not stuffy.
We are not stuffy, although I feel like the humidity in here is like 99%, so it is a little stuffy.
There's two ways to define stuffy. That was not one of them. So today, we could go on and on about all the things we've learned. I wonder if there's any more that I think about. Like, this has been a journey. I feel very comfortable now. It's nice to even go to the live events where we have an audience and feel like all I have to do is sit down and just talk. And
those bring us so much joy. That might be a highlight of something that we've started the last.
We've met friends. We've met our friend Nick Harper is part of the Rogue Buddha studio that we do our live events at. Nick, you are precious to us. You are such a dear friend to me, very personally, and love you very much. And you have been so gracious with your time. It's like going to do a live event at somebody's house that we really feel comfortable in. I love Nick. I love that space. Of course, I love his art, as everybody knows who's watched this, as I made a big purchase.
And if you've never been to one of our live events, I would say they're pretty damn special.
Yeah.
Like it's a highlight because we're building community. We have this space where we're making conversations about mental health and relationships so open. You are not alone. We're all going through it together. It's sort of the idea of like, we're not fine, but we're together.
Which the funny thing even about our name is that our name went through, like, on your behalf, 50,000 different offers.
Which is a part of my personality traits that you don't love is I can't stop generating wonderful ideas. And Doug's like, we've already decided.
Actually, wonderful is the word I might challenge.
Spectacular.
I think
Amazing.
Live, Laugh, Love was one of yours. And I'm...
Please. So Doug doesn't like yoga. He doesn't like breathing. He doesn't like the word gratitude.
I think, hold on. I don't dislike those things. I think yoga obviously is a adequate form of whatever.
Adequate?
I also, though, I think words need to have meat. I think we're using some words in our culture like fine. That's why this word bugs me. And this is where we came up with this title. When clients come in and they're like, I'm fine. I'm like, okay. Like literally my clients will say, okay, I know you're not going to be okay with that. Let me elaborate. Right. And of course I want to know, like, fine is a silly word. It's just so benign. And I need to know depth and I need to know the guts of that. Right. So, and no matter what it is, like one of the things that I love about doing mental health is that bring anything. Like, I don't care where you're at, whoever you are, whatever your feelings are, I'm good.
Come as you are.
Go.
Bring it.
Bring it. So we're going to move. We could talk about this process for a long time because it's really meaningful. I'm proud of us too. Thank you for joining me finally. And this has been an amazing journey. I'm excited to see where the next 100 go.
Me too.
This is a process and everything continues to evolve. I love our chairs. I love our table. I love our sign. I love our team. I love everybody. We're looking for one additional member to kind of be our producer, marketer person, push us out
we need
into
marketing
the future.
And PR and promotion.
Anybody's interested, let us know.
We need...
But we've gone through a few, so are we just really difficult to work with? Probably. Yes. And we are a little controlling and not demanding, but opinionated.
Well, because we have great ideas and this is our pride and joy. I mean, a part of the reason why our journey has been bumpy is because Doug and I, before the podcast, have incredibly full lives, full private practices. Doug might be an empty nester, but he raised 2 amazing kids.
I did.
I've got 2 teenage boys and 2 dogs. We still have to cook dinners and we still have to clean and we still have to drive people to practices and do the morning hustle and get people to the bus. And so we've added this whole other full-time situation onto our already full lives. So Doug and I have had to navigate balance and boundaries, which we're going to learn about in our next episode. Which is
I'm laughing because there's so many things that have happened.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've also been battling wicked insomnia and perimenopause.
Yep.
Yes, now you guys know I'm not 23. And I know I have all my sisters out there that are dealing with the same crap. Which brings me to another live event we're going to have on August 11th, also at the Rogue Buddha Gallery. It is navigating, it's a couple, this amazing couple, Gabby and Chris. They're going to be talking to us about how their IVF, their postpartum depression, psychosis, menopause, they're couples issues. These affect relationships.
They are couples relationship issues. And I think that was one of the things that I really wanted it to be the case. I did not just want to focus on the person having the symptoms, which is really obviously a critical element and challenge. But I wanted to know what it was for the other person on the other side, because I do have couples who don't always communicate about what's going on in a postpartum situation. But anyway, we'll get to that, and we'll keep kind of telling you about those things on our socials, but also on the podcast. But I want to get to the meat of today's deal. And really, I can't say thank you enough to Alex and Digg and Geoff and Jon, who have been with us from the very beginning and who have been just vital players. I remember when my buddy Geoff, who's also my contractor, he does all the work in my house. He's redone my entire 1904 colonial home.
And he's the one who is the cat herder. He is directing us, which we would only be able to really accept from Geoff.
That's right. And he has a buddy, Jon, who he said, do you want to do a podcast? And Jon joked this morning, I didn't tell you this, Jon joked this morning about letting his therapist know that he has multiple therapists in his life now, and he does this podcast about mental health, and his people are impressed. It's not always an impressive thing. We're not the easiest people to get along with. We're always...
Speak for yourself. I am literally the easiest person to get along with. Doug, much harder. Much harder.
Yeah.
I'm high on agreeableness.
We'll see what the DMs say. We'll get some feedback from people and say,
who would you rather be friends with, me or Doug? There are special prizes
my Lord.
For these answers.
And maybe you will become one of our friends.
All you need to do is join our Patreon, because we're going to do live conversations. Should we talk about the 2 questions that you've asked each one?
I'd like to start with the first one, though, and go down the list. Would that be okay?
Yes, and then we'll flesh out our beautiful team for you and talk a little bit about who they are to us.
Oh, I love that idea.
Right? And so yes.
Yeah. So here's the deal. You are also not going to hear our voices with the answers to the questions. All of our team members have agreed to do voiceovers to actually ask the questions themselves, or give the answers to the questions themselves. And really what I wanted to do, and what we wanted to do in this particularly big episode, is to give thanks to our team, honor our team by asking their opinions on 2 basic questions that are specifically relevant to what we do. So with the first question being, what is your secret to a healthy relationship? Who are we starting with?
I think we should start with Alex.
Oh my God.
So let's tell you a little bit about Alex. He's a little shy in front of the camera. He is the absolute sweetest human. He and I share an ADHD brain, so there's a real brother sisterhood there of just we really get each other's brains. The only difference is he is so thoughtful and intentional about the way that he presents things. So I'll ask a question and he will just give us so much thought and care. He takes care of all of the editing and all of the videos, and he's the one who has these ideas of whenever we swear, which is more than we should, he'll pop a little duck in front of our mouths when we say fuck. Or, it's those kinds of things. He does the thumbnails. He does our little 1-minute shorts. He has such great ideas, and he has such a unique take on everything. Okay, so remind me, what was question 1? And
I'm not done with Alex. So here's what I need to do. I need to give a shout out to my older daughter for putting us in touch with Alex. I probably met Alex at a work event that the 2 of them were at in LA years and years and years ago. But bottom line is, we were in a crisis about needing a quick editor to put some things together. And Alex had been my website manager and my website developer and creator through my daughter's connection. And then I asked him and he said, sure. And really, I can't even tell you, I mean, you and I will say this, there's been no blip. There's been just no ripple. There's been no challenge. And I told my daughter, I said, I don't understand the ease by which working with your dear friend
oh my gosh, he's incredible.
Has been. It's just been the easiest thing. I hope you're blushing at this point, Alex, as you're listening and reading this.
He intuits.
But you said something so important about how he communicates with us. It's thoughtful and clear. And there's very few people who do that in a satisfying way to me.
Yes. Just a brilliant guy. I mean, and so he is responsible for how great we sound and look, really. Yep. Okay, so his What was the
What
question?
is your secret to a healthy relationship?
So this is what Alex says.
Communication is key, but not all communication translates perfectly through the range of all emotions. Learn how to prevent miscommunication when feelings are hurt by being patient, assuming nothing, listening, and always being true to yourself.
I also feel like, could anyone be easier to be in a relationship than Alex?
Except this is what I think.
Tell me.
You and I obviously will say that we outside, like there have been, I'm laughing a little bit at what I was giggling about before is the time that you were really, really tired. And I asked a 3-part question.
Oh my
And then
God, I can't track.
And you went on to another question. I said, actually, she wasn't done answering the 3-part question. And you got really angry and you were
Yes.
irritated. And one of my clients who was watching the podcast said, boy, was she pissed at you. And I'm like,
I mean, that's why you guys need to watch the YouTubes, is because you'll see everything.
Some
that's
heat
going
coming out of your
on,
ears.
Some heat.
But going back to Alex, like one of the things that I heard him say is that there is this element of like communication sometimes isn't perfect in light of the emotions that go with it. And that's the truth. If we're not at a good place, I always tell people, if you can kind of get to a 3 or 4 out of 10 in terms of intensity,
Your
you're
nervous
probably
system.
okay to talk. Your nervous system is going to allow you to talk in the way that you'd like.
That's right.
Own your feelings, talk about your feelings, use I feel statements. I feel this when you blank. And just really be respectful and thoughtful and considerate and respectful and regarding in that interaction. So I love your answer, Alex. I will tell you that, of course, so communication is critical. Clear communication is critical. Owning when we're not at our best and we've said something we don't mean or is being misunderstood, which requires the other person, by the way, to be curious about that as well.
Right.
We want the other person, if you don't understand what's being communicated, please ask questions. Like, I'm not sure I understand. Is this what you were telling me? So this miscommunication can be managed so easily by that. The last thing you said about being yourself and being honest and true. I mean, that is my mantra about therapy. The goal to therapy is live an honest life. Be an honest person. Be honest about who you are. Reflect that honesty with others, for sure.
That's right. And what I was going to say that I love about what Alex was saying is the assume nothing.
Yeah.
Because like what you were saying,
Oof.
come at it from a place of curiosity.
Yeah.
If we've been in a long relationship with someone, we tend to fill in the blanks when we're a little bit confused. Because what I'm trying to say is chicken. And so if we're in a place of listening instead of assuming, then relationships are a million times better.
I will spit out my water.
Most of the couples I work with, a part of the problem isn't just miscommunication. It's jumping to a conclusion that is incorrect. And of course, those conclusions are rarely those of goodwill and good intention. They're usually, you're trying to screw me over or I'm defensive. So beautiful, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. That was very thoughtful. By the way, I can't wait for everybody to hear all of our team members. It's like incredibly important to kind of get a sense of who they are.
I mean, our poor Dig has a horrible bout of COVID and she's completely lost her voice. So we're going to hope that her beautiful voice is going to replace mine, but I'm going to read her answers just
So
in
Dig
case.
is next.
Well, are we just going to do question 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Dig. So one more thank you to my older daughter, who yet again referred a second person to us when we were in need of a social media kind of gal that understood TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
Which is evidently not an easy thing to do, but all of a sudden like hundreds and hundreds of views are going on since we've connected with Dig. So Kayla also puts us in touch with her friend Dig, who knew Alex. And so we have this kind of built-in system going on because they need to communicate well. And Dig equally is so pleasant and clear and easy and professional. And again, I called my daughter and I said, I don't quite understand how your generation has these skills. And my daughter thinks I'm really silly for assuming that they wouldn't at that age, because they are young people.
Millennials.
They are, I think Dig is Gen Z, maybe.
No.
I'm not so sure.
Okay, but if...
She's young.
She is?
And by the way...
She is! She's 26!
That's what I know.
Oh my gosh.
So
she's also maybe the cutest person in the world. Is that unprofessional?
And weird, Dig lives in Kentucky. Alex lives in North Carolina. So we have like long distance relationships with these people, and we've never met Digg in person. Alex was able to come to an event that we had, and so we were able to meet. I've met him before, I'm sure.
In
it was
Atlanta,
just such a delight.
Which was also special, and we'd love to tell you about that someday.
We will indeed. Yep.
So, Digg is our newest member and just the sweetest person, and this is what she has to say to the question,
what's your secret to a healthy relationship?
And she says, although I'm only 26, I've been with my now husband for almost 7 years. Do the math on that. Growing up fast, I feel as though I've lived an entire lifetime before him. Meeting him was like my light at the end of the tunnel. That's so sweet. I love love. My secret would be a lot of things, but above all, I say be considerate. Simply thinking about how an action or a choice may affect him goes a very long way. He and I are going to be a partnership always, and I'll stand in his corner no matter what. He does the same for me. Having someone be so considerate of me has built my trust in ways I wasn't sure was possible. Being respected and appreciated doesn't compare to anything. Oh my God.
She says this while she has COVID.
Beyond her years. I hope that she makes that a Valentine's Day card. It is so wonderful and thoughtful. And also, Digg, let me just say, I feel like I've learned something about how I could be a better partner, because being thoughtful and considerate about how my actions affect others might not be my strongest gift.
Really? Here's what I want to say about this. First of all, I kind of love this. You've lived a lifetime before him. I just think that's a very
She's a whole
spiritual, sort of like existential way of looking at a relationship. I've had relationships that I swear I've had before in this life. But this whole kind of, you talk about being considerate, obviously, and, you know, respectful and all those things we've talked about. You said something else, though, that I was really struck by. Like, I am currently single. I like being single overall. I'm considering what options I might look at if I were to ever not want to be single. But you said something about standing in their corner. And one of the things I always tell people, and all of my friends know this about me, like when I know that my friends are my ride or die, my friends have my back, my friends would stand by me no matter what. Those are the people in my inner circle. Those are my chosen family members. The people who I know, I don't even have to consider if somebody is bad-mouthing me or doing something to me or, you know, whatever it is, they will have my back. They will stand up for me, all that sort of thing. So that standing in your corner, like really knowing what that corner is and being solid and consistent in that is just critical. So Digg, I love your answer. I cannot wait to meet your partner at some point and get a sense of who this person is that is so special to you.
We also have to meet her in person.
You know, we see her on FaceTime every now and then. But
one interesting thing that I feel like is the difference between you and I that we've really learned over the years.
Boundaries.
That you have a lot of yes, actually, I was thinking so much about the boundary piece and about like who does what on the podcast, and what I'm learning from you is that, oh my gosh, this is so, and we're getting ahead of ourselves because Dr. Catherine, who is our boundary person, that's next week, and you guys are going to love that episode. But just the idea that you actually have incredible boundaries around your own self-care, your own time, what you will and will not do after hours, where I feel like I am learning from you that I want to have better boundaries around my own self-care and my own time.
I think you did better this week.
I really did.
So this is what is the bottom line. I do podcasts on Friday. Like I do the stuff for the podcast on Friday. I order the merchandise. I do whatever. I address the Slack messages
which
sometimes.
Which is like 7,000.
There's 7,000 by that time. But I'll get messages from Talia all week long saying, what do you think about this? Can you review this?
Yes.
Can you take care of this?
That's right. So who do you think is more annoyed? But so actually this boundaries conversation helped me a ton because I sometimes feel like, oh, how nice for you living your best life.
You have said that to me in that voice.
All of your energy on your well-being and your
clients. Yeah.
Whereas like I'm parenting all the time and am doing my private practice, but also every spare moment I'm working on this podcast. And so instead of me being angry with Doug for having good boundaries, I am going to be more like Doug. WWDD. So
I did a men's group for a while and they wanted to get t-shirts that said that.
WWDD?
Yeah, and that's sweet.
I'm not sure. Sounds codependent. But yes, work in progress. Boundaries. Here I come.
And by the way, I was thinking about it on the way in today.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't hear as much from you this week. I liked it.
But that's because now I have a new passion. I have interns. After 20 years of being in private practice, I'm going to supervise people and I'm so excited. And don't worry, you guys. I know that 7s in the Enneagram tend to be like, pivot next. I am obsessed with our podcast and we want to just keep growing. We want to do our live events and community forever.
Yeah.
Should we do...
Who's next?
Who's next? Jon?
Let's do Jon. So Jon was a friend of Geoff's, and Jon is so ridiculously loyal and
Jon's
comes
our
every
audio
2 weeks.
guy.
He's our audio guy. He knows so much. Like if we're having a problem right now with the audio, I'll say, guys, come in here. Something's wrong. They'll both come in. They'll fix it easily. They know what they're doing. Jon has done recording for years. He is just such a special person. He actually thanked me on the way in today. I don't know if I told you this.
No.
He said, thank you for including me.
Oh.
I got a little bit like emotional about it. I'm like, you have no idea how much we need you.
Oh my gosh, I know. He is really special to us. And they are literally getting nothing but sandwiches. I mean, that's
they
like...
get sandwiches and maybe a free piece of merch every now and then. Here's what I also think, though. Like Brian Pyatt, who was our last live guest, who I just adore that man.
We adore him.
Charming and sweet and bright and kind of ended his career in one way to manage anxiety and OCD and is now a therapist and a dear friend of We're Not
Check
Fine.
out that episode
Absolutely.
if you haven't. It's so
fantastic.
good.
But, you know, he was interesting because as he was sitting in the chair getting ready for the live event, he's like, you have a whole team. Because our team was just running around doing camera equipment and setting up the microphone for the audience and setting up lights. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not even paying attention. I'm just focusing in on this. And we were having a fun conversation. So
yeah, we're the luckiest. We have the most incredible team.
But Jon is critical to our team. And I'm so grateful that he's here. And, you know, it is lovely that he finds this meaningful to be a part of his experience. So Jon's answer to... what's your secret to a healthy relationship is?
Be honest and have a good sense of humor. Really simple.
So,
and I like that.
So there's 2 things I think about that. You know, this be honest is just the no-brainer because I've said it a million times, like just be your honest self, be your true self. And once you figure out what that is, it really does help you live a better life and take care of yourself differently. The sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like I'm never...
don't take it too seriously.
But I'm also never sure what that means. Like you don't...
keep it light.
You don't want to... keep it light. In that regard, it feels really healthy. Like keep it light. Know that we're all human. Know that we're all fallible. Don't take it so personally.
I like that.
Like that's kind of how I view that in a healthy way. My worry about some of that might be sweeping stuff under the rug that might otherwise come up toward... you know, meeting you in a contemptuous situation, getting you in a contemptuous situation or building resentments. And I don't wish that for people.
Right, which the people pleasers, the more avoidant people, that's what tends to happen.
It's like when you talk about a good part and a bad part of every Enneagram type.
Yeah, the healthy and unhealthy.
The sense of humor has a positive and a questionably, like I would challenge, make sure you don't sweep anything under the rug that you really need to address.
But you know what? Sometimes
go with the flow,
it's okay
take it less personally. Don't get defensive. Go ahead.
To zoom out a little bit and not have to call someone out on every annoying thing that they do,
like Doug might do,
is also a gift to the relationship. But maybe that is a little more avoidant, but I don't know. I've grown maybe 70%. I feel 70% improved on being able to step up into harder conversations and be direct about boundaries and needs and give people hard information that...
like when you got the wrong coffee today at the coffee shop and you threw it against the wall.
Punched him.
Yeah, you were... just kidding.
I'm not capable of that, but Doug would do it for me. That's why you need an 8 in your life.
So the next member of our team, of course, I've already referenced this, but he
Geoff.
is a dear, dear friend of mine. And Geoff has been a part of my life since our kids were in kindergarten together. And his dear daughter became dear friends with my child and was at every birthday party. So I've known him and his family now for years and years and years.
They're the best.
And Geoff, immediately when he knew I had a podcast, he had done his own podcast for a while.
What? How did I not?
That's very funny. And he said, I can help any way you'd like.
Is
I
that
can
why
help
he
out.
wanted to come on stage and talk? What was his podcast about?
Poker playing. Yeah. He and a bunch of buddies played poker.
So
it didn't
awesome.
last, however, and he did it in a certain, he did it at a library or something, public access TV station. That's where it was. But Geoff is, again, one of my besties. He's one of the closest people I know. He knows everything about me. Every episode taping that we do, he comes to my house after and we have a cocktail and celebrate the accomplishment, talk about life, catch up.
Sweet.
So I see him regularly as well. And Geoff has also, my home needed so much work to upgrade it. He takes care of everything. If I have something like Geoff, this light doesn't work, he'll be like, I'll be right over. I'll take a look at it. If I need something hung that I don't want to damage the plaster walls I have, he'll be like, I'll take care of it. And it's done by the time I get home.
Our
He's
team is very familial. Like we love
I'm
each other.
grateful.
We take care of each other the absolute best. And he also has this real like hippie vibe.
He does have hippie vibe. In fact, his logo on his phone is a tie-dye shirt.
He's, oh my gosh, total tie-dye, like beard, ponytail. If you guys want to put names to faces, just go to our we'renotfine.com and our Patreon too. I believe you'll see everyone's pictures. We love our team so much. Okay, this is also a short one. Ready? Do you want to repeat the question?
Geoff, what's your secret to a healthy relationship?
Honesty and communication.
I think he should write a book on that.
To be honest,
That's good.
Geoff was like, feel free to elaborate on it. I don't want to elaborate. I mean, honestly, and everybody knows on my website, douglasjensen.com, I have the 4 C's of relationships, which I was asked to do for a different project. It is what I believe about relationships. Chemistry, communication, compromise, and commitment are the 4 C's.
And I always like to add chlamydia.
You can absolutely add. I have a friend, I'll just put a shout out to my friend Kelly, who everybody knows from our podcast, who has a lot of different C's that she's glad to fly out of her mouth at any given time.
Wow. Does she need to promote your 4 C's?
I believe that Kelly is our live guest at our event in September. I think you can ask her, what are the 4 C's to you? And she will just start laughing because her brain works in an interesting way.
But
anyway.
Also, quick little shout out to Kelly because we went to her event, her book signing. She is
When Love Meets Grief.
Brilliant.
Yep.
When Love Meets Grief.
Yep.
Don't wait until she's our live guest in September. Go and buy it. It is so powerful and so beautiful. Just like the premise that grief is where the love was when they're alive. Like it's impossible to separate the two. It fills that space. It's really beautiful.
So Geoff's answer is kind of simple, and yet all there is to it. I do believe honesty.
Good communication.
And good communication. And by the way, good communication means you're being honest with that person. So it's a beautiful, beautiful way of expressing that.
And good communication also means just what Doug said earlier is don't communicate when you are triggered and activated and defensive because it will go nowhere. That's how conversations escalate. And you want to make sure that you've calmed your nervous system so that you can have good communication and not just mean communication.
So we're going to jump to the second question that we
Let's
asked
do it.
everybody. And I think we should go backwards. I think we should start with Geoff this time.
No, let's start with Geoff.
Geoff just time.
Geoff. He always says, does he spell his name with a J like a dummy or Geoff the real
he's
way?
judging the J's.
Yeah.
I also said Geoff, and I thought, I have peanut butter right here, but it is not that brand. It's the other brand. So the other question is, what is one of the most profound lessons you've learned about relationships? And of course, they seem really similar in terms of like what the question is, but learning a lesson is not about necessarily, a healthy secret. So,
okay.
A profound lesson you've learned in relationships, Geoff.
Geoff says, I think you guys should write this down.
Don't be a dick and empathize with somebody when they're just telling you their problems instead of trying to solve it. Just listen.
OMFGGG. I will tell you guys, we have done 20 years of couples therapy. And if everyone understood that, people are not always looking for a solution. Sometimes they just want a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes they just want empathy and compassion. Most of the time, I'm so sorry, that really sucks. You would need less couples therapy if you were able to just even ask, are you looking for comfort or a solution? Geoff, standing O.
I think we all need t-shirts that say "Don't be a dick." And you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
I was in New Orleans for a friend's birthday a couple months ago, and there were artists all around. There was a festival going on, an art fair, and somebody had a wood carving that said "Don't be a dick." And I took a picture of it for Geoff because he says that quite a bit.
Just don't be a dick. It's pretty simple. I really like it.
It is pretty simple. And, you know, I think, and I certainly know I laughed when I saw what he wrote, but, you know, that's a really good thing. And it applies to every single relationship, coworkers, friends, family, etc. Like just, you know, and don't be a dick to me means don't be inappropriate, rude, disrespectful, disregarding.
That's right.
Condescending, all the word passive aggressive. There's so many things that might fit under that umbrella. I want to say though, you know, this listen and empathize. So I've referenced this before. Dr. Bill Bradshaw, who was just a gem of a professor in my graduate program. I've said this to you, you know, the audience before, the viewers before, that, you know, we were doing some mock interviews and videos of interacting with patients. And I was so in my head, I was like, I have so many thoughts going on. I want to ask all these questions. And
yeah, you've changed so much.
Bill
since
literally, sarcasm goes under "Don't be a dick."
Sarcasm is the weapon of the week. That's what I've heard.
So he literally touched me on the shoulder and he said, all you have to do is listen and try to understand.
Oh, yes. We're just a compassionate witness. Like that is why therapy can be so powerful. That's one of the biggest agents of change, is feeling like you have a compassionate witness. You don't have to solve every problem.
So Geoff, really good work. And, you know, listen and empathize is the same thing as listen and try to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to go back to Jon, who, by the way, I forgot. He told me to say this is our centennial episode. And that I'm supposed to say bicentennial and show my biceps. I told him I'd do that for him.
So Jon...
What does Jon say about his most profound lesson he's learned about relationships?
Doug and Talia, congratulations on your 100th episode. And thanks for letting me be a part of this with you. I have a little different take on this. Over a year ago, I lost my partner and spouse suddenly, and so I've had a lot of conversations with my historic self regarding relationships. Something I've thought about a lot is that you never really know everything about a person. There's still a chance to learn something new about them pretty much every day. And time is a finite resource that eventually runs out. If you think of it, maybe try and do something nice for somebody, or remind the people you care about what they mean to you.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. But he has grown so much, and he's a part of widow groups, and he's got a whole bunch of widow lady friends that he hangs out with.
I'd love to have on this podcast at some point.
Yes.
We'll gather at their location and hopefully record it there.
But honestly,
you know what's interesting?
Feel...
We kind of just like got a little bit serious about this and a little bit more emotionally connected.
But that message, it's like you don't know what you've got until it's gone. If each one of us spent a moment to think about how precious our relationships are with the people that we adore, and if you remember that that is finite, you have absolutely no idea. I mean, case in point with my beautiful cousin, who is literally like a twin brother soulmate, you just never really know what's going to happen. And so are you stepping up and loving as hard as you can, or are you in a place of resentment and icing people out and ignoring and stonewalling? There's no time for that.
So it's a very heartfelt answer, Jon. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you, of course. And, you know, I think he has also been able to say that this podcast and listening to it and thinking about it and knowing us has been part of his healing process.
He tells us that, and it just fills
and we're really
my
grateful
heart.
for everything you contribute. I just want to also comment, you know, assume nothing or assume that you don't know everything about that person. I think we can live with people for a long time. We can believe that we know the inner workings. And, as therapists, I think we do tend to look a little differently at people and put puzzle pieces together and scan and understand differently. But we don't know everything about each other. There are surprises that you and I have identified we had about each other in this process.
Right.
Some of our uglies came out.
Mostly Doug's, because mine are still cute. Another thing that Jon provides for us is homemade yerba mate with hibiscus.
Cheers, Jon.
To Jon.
And next would be back to Digg, who has COVID. And we hope by the time this airs, she is entirely recovered and feeling better and has a voice that does not sound like Brenda Vaccaro.
Who's that? I was thinking Marge Simpson.
Dogs like this.
Wait, what was she in?
Regretfully, I remember her from a tampon commercial.
What does she look like? Okay. Well,
next.
Continue to discuss. Okay.
Digg, what is your most profound lesson you've learned about relationships?
This is what she says.
Tell me.
Before getting to where I am, it was tough out there. LOL. Because that's what Gen
Sense
Z
of humor.
says.
Okay.
I would say the most profound lesson I've learned and is most important to me, you really can't beg someone to love you. It's pretty profound. This sounds obvious and possibly slightly pathetic. I know. Stop it right now. It does not. But young me really needed to hear that message. If someone wants to give you love and respect, they're just going to do it. You don't have to keep asking them for things that should come naturally over and over again. You won't be able to change them no matter how you try. That makes me want to cry too. Why do I want to cry all the time? These are so beautiful and profound. My God, this message, you can't make someone love you. They're either going to be naturally exuding this love and respect. They're going to celebrate you. They're going to love all of the right qualities about you. You can't make someone feel that way about you.
Yeah. Sometimes, obviously we work with people sometimes that come in about their relationships and they're like, I keep doing everything I think will make that person want to date me and want to continue and want to work on this relationship. Yeah. And I always tell people, you're constantly working toward getting them to do something that doesn't come organically in the relationship. Think about how you feel. Right. You're, this anxious attachment that I might say that is, where you're constantly seeking that person will eventually figure it out, that you're this amazing person. It doesn't work that way.
And do you know what's even worse about that?
Tell me.
Then if you're bending over backwards to try to be the person you think they want you to be, then all of a sudden you find yourself in a relationship where you can't be yourself because it was a bait and switch if all of a sudden you are yourself. And that is, we want every one of you out there to be in a relationship where not only your partner doesn't just tolerate and put up with you, but they celebrate you. They're obsessed with you, warts and all.
And so if you are putting yourself out there openly and honestly and, with great authenticity, you're going to find that person who ultimately wants you. And so obviously, Digg, you've had some experience with being kind of maybe heartbroken or disappointed or hurt by the fact that someone did not love you the way that you love them.
That's right.
And the reality is that doesn't work. That's not a fun relationship. You want people who embrace you and find your best qualities enjoyable and really just celebrate you in the way that you show up in this world.
And we promise you that's out there.
And it sounds like you found it.
Let your freak flag fly. And if you haven't had that experience yet of being yourself and being loved, we promise you that's out there. And that's literally why we have our podcast. So listen to all the episodes. If you're like, oh, there might be some obstacles in my way to a healthy relationship, awesome. Listen to the episode. We just did a big 5 personality factors. If you feel like you might be a little too, a little too neurotic, a little too rigid, a little too reactive, these are things you can grow and change. We're all a work in progress.
So Digg, thank you for your vulnerability and thank you for your expression. And thank you for those, pretty insightful and beautiful comments about letting yourself kind of know that if you had looked back, that lesson would have been really helpful for you to learn. And the important thing is that you know it now. and that goes to friendships, and it goes to us, and it goes to everyone else that you have a relationship with, you should expect to feel that same sort of regard and mutual respect. So
And
we're so glad you're here.
Don't lower that bar. Let me try
Or
that again.
bar.
Don't lower that.
Wow.
Jimmy. Is that what goats say, or is that a lamb?
No, it's a goat thing. Last but not least,
Alex.
the person who's reviewing this video right now to make sure that it is not profane in any way that Doug is not usually. I haven't said many bad words today.
We're
Does it
just
need
not
fun?
allowed to say it in the first minute. But then it's a free-for-all.
By the way, beautiful Alex this is how he actually approaches Doug, who does not take feedback from anyone generally. Said maybe not in the first line, don't say the word fuck, but you can
Right.
eventually say it and YouTube won't cancel.
Yeah, he knows how to talk to us.
And I said, so I don't
a
say,
great way.
welcome to the fuck this fucking podcast.
Right.
Fuck, you fuck. Anyway.
The last blurb that he edited
Yeah.
that we posted with the ducks, because we were swearing, because Doug was like, the goal is to not give a bleep. And so the whole 1 minute, which I think was maybe one of our best, was just like the duck. We were like swearing a lot.
Yeah.
My mom
Did not like it.
was mortified because she doesn't listen to the podcast, but she does look at the 1 minute blurb.
Was she really?
Or she was like, you swear?
I get no kiss on the cheek next time. That's what I'm anticipating.
I cannot believe you got a kiss on the cheek.
I totally got one.
Yeah, because my mom is also an 8 in the Enneagram, and it takes her a while to appreciate another 8. This is what
Last but not least,
Alex.
Alex, what is your most profound lesson you've learned about relationships?
he says. And case in
This is going to
point,
be good. I know
very
it is.
thoughtful and above and beyond.
I've learned to differentiate between a healthy relationship and an enmeshed one. For the longest time, I didn't feel loved if my partner wasn't also willing to give up who they were to form a strong bond, which always led to resentment due to poor communication.
Holy shit. That's like 20 years of therapy right there in that one sentence. Because when we're giving up who we are expecting our partner to be sacrificing in the same way, and sometimes even feel like if you're not sacrificing, you don't love me.
Let's be careful about that word sacrifice. You know, compromise is a part of relationships. There's no chance that you meet somebody that agrees with you on everything.
Good.
And so what it is that you're saying, Alex, to me is reducing the level of codependency, like not taking care of other people at your expense, not accommodating people at your expense. And so this first line you had about you've learned to differentiate between a healthy and enmeshed relationship is really profound. And not many people have that capacity. You could certainly write a book, and I bet you see it sometimes. I bet you in your interactions with other people in relationships will naturally see this going on.
He'll be a part of our book for sure.
And of course, one of the things we know is that if you give up too much of yourself, eventually you do become resentful.
Oh,
if you compromise
100%.
too much, if you aren't listening to yourself, if you're, you know, trying so hard to have that person like you or engage with you or commit to you or whatever it is, that you're willing to lose a part of yourself, that is a mistake.
And that's not a healthy relationship.
All of us, it almost always leads to resentment. So, gosh, I'm
more.
impressed with our people.
There's more.
Oh, for God's sakes.
There's more. Get ready to get your mind blown again.
Learning to love myself and being confident in the things I want to do, even if I do them alone, has been a very important lesson for me to learn how to be a better partner in general. Or as RuPaul says,
if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else?
You watch us Drag Race.
Oh my gosh.
So do I.
I mean, I can't tell you how much I love that. And the codependent versus like independent piece of like, I am going to love myself and embrace myself and continue to do the things I love to do, even if I'm doing them alone. Like, I'm not expecting someone else needs to do these things with me as a sign of love. I can do them for me, with me.
So Alex, of course, beautiful response, and self-love and acknowledging yourself and not compromising yourself and making sure that, you know, going back to even John's comment about being aware of time and that we only have finite amounts of time in our lives to do things. We got to do those things that are dreams for us. We got to do those things that we want to do.
It's later than you think.
Well, and to be honest, there are things that I don't want to do. I don't want to skydive. That would not be worth it to me.
No, thank you.
It would not be fun to parasail for me. I just don't like those things that have anything to do with heights.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go out on that thing that people go on where it's glass and you go out and you think there's nothing underneath you. I don't even know where that is. I think it's the Sears Tower or Hancock Center or whatever it is now. But here's what I want to say. I think there's a point, Alex, that you are absolutely right. We have to love ourselves, and we cannot give up ourselves for anybody else. That is codependency. It is making sure that you're, taking care of somebody else's needs and wants and thoughts. Compromise is important, but losing yourself is not. And there are things that are probably for all of us, things that are not going to be compromisable.
Right.
And we can do those things. By the way, even if we're in a relationship, we can do those things alone. Let me also tell you that as a single person, I thrive on those things. Yeah. I have a relationship, by the way, for all of us who are single watching this or listening to this. The reality is that being single is a choice. It is a healthy choice. I love myself. I love doing things by myself. I love several things that I do for me, and I don't need someone else to complete me, I guess, is what I would say.
I mean, I want even partnered people to hear that important message.
That's what Alex is saying.
You are not a half of a whole. Have a beautiful relationship with yourself. Be quiet in your own mind.
And don't
Listen
give up
to your
dreams.
music.
Yeah.
Don't give up your dreams.
Yep.
But this is another reason why I love Alex. This is his personality. So he was like, the secret to a healthy relationship. And then he sends us this.
A chocolate chip cookie recipe.
A chocolate chip cookie recipe, which we are going to put in our show notes. We're going to put it on our Patreon. And I was like, okay, Alex, I love everything about this except for the fact that he's using grams. Who uses grams? 230
North
grams of cake flour? Anyway, if you can decipher the units of
Cake
measurement.
Flour. Huh.
I don't know. It's just so sweet.
So Alex was going to write that as his answer or put that as his answer to the secret to a healthy relationship, these chocolate chip cookies.
It's going to be a bonus for you guys.
Definitely a love language possibility. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, my dear. Thank you so much for co-hosting with me. I love you so much.
100 episodes strong.
I know. And
battered
thank you.
and bruised along the way, but
Thank you to Alex, Digg, Geoff, and Jon. We could not do this without you. We also want to give a shout out to everybody who has been a supportive person in our process. We have other people who have been a part of our team. We have producers who have come and gone. We are thankful to every single person. One of the things I always say is that even if it's not been a great experience, or if it's been challenging, or if it's been stress-filled, the reality is it helps us grow. It is a puzzle piece to our development, and we can learn from every single one of those experiences. So,
and we have. We've learned so much along the way, and we hope to just continue to feel alive and passionate and have these beautiful conversations, create more community. We are so grateful for everyone that has signed up for our Patreon. It is changing our world. We want to offer you more of the good stuff, the bonuses, and with your support, we will be able to grow our community, have even bigger, better guests and topics and venues and workshops and onward and upward. And we couldn't do it without you. We're so grateful.
Here's to the next 100.
So we're not fine, but Doug, you're just not good at this.
I'm not great at it, but at least we made it to 100 episodes so far.
That's right. Still alive.
Thank you to everybody listening, viewing. We appreciate all of you.
Love you guys.